Good morning. You know, growing up, I didn't realize today had a day, Maundy Thursday. The kind of church that I grew up in, we just didn't say that. But then I learned that. But I'm picking up something from Roy Goebel, and he calls it Mandate Thursday. So this is the day of the Last Supper. I think we know a lot about the Last Supper, and I hope even just in these few minutes that I have a chance to share with you, that you'll walk away with something new. Roy Goebel calls it Mandate Thursday. Jesus gave a mandate. Jesus did a ton of teaching at the Last Supper. John chapter 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17 records that. And it was years and years later, but that's what John said. He quoted Jesus saying, "The Holy Spirit will remind you of the things that I've said." You ever wonder how they remembered? I think that's the answer. But yes, in John chapter 13, Jesus says, "A new command I give you, love one another as I have loved you, so you must love one another." It also says, showing the full extent of his love, it said that he washed their feet. And so I kind of took that as kind of like, oh, so that was the full extent of his love. But it wasn't. It went on through the night. And all the things that Jesus endured, and he acted in love instead of vengeance or so many other things, and then he allowed himself to be crucified. But he had to tell them that in advance. Here's one of my thoughts. Jesus knew that the Last Supper really wasn't the Last Supper. He knew that he was going to be dining with the boys again, and the women as well. He knew that he was coming back from the dead. But he still had to prep them for it. But I think that one thing, this new command I give you to love one another, and knowing that what was coming down, he showed them the full extent of his love. So Jesus gives his disciples a mandate at the Last Supper. Well, let me say this too, that all the teaching that Jesus gave them that night, they understood it all and put it into practice the next 3 days. Entirely, completely false. But so I've kind of wrestled with that this Lenten season. Why did Jesus go into all this detail with all this information that had to befuddle them? Well, first of all, he had to tell them sometime. He had them together, and there are some things he wanted to spell out before they happened so they would have a different way of looking at it after it happened. The other thing is, it wouldn't have mattered all that much when Jesus said all of the things that he did at the Last Supper. Could have said them later, because the reality is 2,000 years later, we are still wrestling to understand all the complexities and the many facets of all the things that Jesus shared. So often I think of the love of God, and it's like this diamond with all these brilliant facets, and the cross of Jesus is that way as well. You think you see it sparkle, sparkle, you look at it this way, and you turn this way, and you see something completely new. And I hope this Lenten season that speaks to you as well. So the disciples, he says, they get together at this favorite local joint. He calls it Pop's Pool Hall. He says there's a whole other story to that. And they get together for a quick meal of flatbread and wine. And he commands them to love one another. And he tells them that they'll stay connected to God and get others curious about how that connection works by loving one another. And then Jesus tells them he's going to send them a helper, which is the Holy Spirit. So he's filling them in. But the helper is not going to come until after the death, the burial, and the resurrection. But man, they had to go through this in real time. So after Jesus leaves this final meal with the disciples, they go out and they go to the Garden of Gethsemane. I didn't even know. Garden of Gethsemane. Gethsemane means olive oil press. Did you know that? If I knew it, I forgot it. But that's where Jesus was just like squeezed. He was squeezed until blood came out in his sweat. But he chose to follow through with the plan. You know, they came to Jerusalem. The disciples had to think, this is where it's all going to happen. And yeah, he's talked about death. He's talked about rise again. But we'll understand that later. And it's all true. But I think they still thought he's going to overcome the Romans. And the Jewish leaders are going to recognize he is the uber rabbi. But none of that happened. He was betrayed, arrested, falsely accused, abandoned, ridiculed, and tortured. And yet Jesus loved his disciples. They just had to be wondering. He was transfigured. He walked on water. He did the miracles. How is this all going down like this? I hope that tomorrow on Good Friday and on Silent Saturday, that you try to put yourself in the disciples' shoes and try to understand what it was like in real time for them. And how does that relate to where you're at right now? Are you living in resurrection power every day? Does it feel like Jesus rose from the dead yesterday to you this day? Probably not if you're a normal person. Meditate on these things. Draw close to Jesus in these next few days as we look forward to Resurrection Sunday. God bless you.